everybody, and welcome to another episode of Borderline Genius. We have made it to episode 11, and we have a special one in line for you today. As always, I am Anthony Pagnato, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Mohawk Global. I'm joined by my dear friend and podcast enthusiast, Kenton Grimes, the genius behind Borderline Genius. And we've got a special guest today, which is always a good sign when Kenton and I don't have to talk too much. It helps the ratings massively.
I don't know about that.
I want to introduce today Michael Stolarczyk, the Mohawk's general manager of our Atlanta office, relatively new to the Mohawk organization. You had an amazing career in what we do. And some really cool plans for Mohawk and the Southeast in general. And I want to thank you for being here and ask you to take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience, millions of people. So you're going to be ready.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Kenton. It's really a pleasure to be able to join you guys and cut up some ideas and hash out some things. Yeah, I'm not even 4 months here at Mohawk Global Logistics, and been very fortunate. I've had just a wonderful career in personal evolution. Worked for Maersk for 17 years, DHL for 4, worked for Microsoft for a couple of years, and I've also, been president of a 3PL in Charleston, South Carolina. I've been a president and CEO of a port authority, Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority in good old Ohio, Kenton, and also ran a barge company, Southern Duval, for a year for private equity out of Memphis. So, I think one of the things that I really like to talk about is, living in Hong Kong with Maersk, living in Hanoi, working for Microsoft, making and shipping 500,000 phones a day from a 2.5 million square foot facility, and sending them to 100 different countries on a weekly basis. And then also 5 years in Prague in Czechia, used to be the Czech Republic, used to be Czechoslovakia. We were there for 5 years when I was with the AP Moller Maersk Group, and basically built that organization from 12 people just dealing with forwarders like Mohawk Global to over about $12 million in turnover. And in 5 years, when I came back to the States, we had 365 people, about the size of Mohawk Global, and we were doing about 140 million in turnover a year with our own intermodal yard, our terminal, plus a couple million square feet of distribution space in agency business, for Maersk and SAF Marine, and that was after the acquisition of Sealand as well. So been fortunate to be involved in the supply chain and logistics in three major continents, and looking at it from the import side and the export side on all three, ocean, air, intermodalism, you name it. I kind of always like to say that I've pretty much managed moving things from point A to point B, except via a rickshaw or horseback. So
I love it.
That's my deal.
I love it. And Kenton, I'm going to explain it. Kenton and I usually treat this podcast as a more formal affair, and we usually dress up a little bit. Today, we had such a wonderful opportunity to record with Michael, and we did not want to miss it. So you get us as we are. Kenton in his sweatshirt. At least we took the hoodie off, and he has a haircut. And myself in this little casual thing here. So that's how excited we are that we didn't go home and put the tuxedos in. We jumped right to recording.
Right.
And we're thrilled to be here. Microsoft, right? Before we jump in, was the Zune's failure your fault or not?
Which failure?
The Zune, the music device that did not make it.
No. So, Steve Ballmer acquired Nokia in late 2013. I was recruited to join them, shut down 9 global plants, and move all of their phone production the Nokia, classic little handies to the feature phones, which Microsoft created the Lumia, which was Windows 10 driven. And basically their desire was to create one device to control them all, the Xbox, the Surface, and the like. And a beautiful phone, great operating system to run the phone. Nobody could make the necessary amount of apps to compete with iPhone. So
It just had too much of a start, right? It was
yeah, it was a bridge. It was a bridge too far, and they just didn't have that. Windows 10 is completely different than trying to develop an app for Apple-based products. So we basically opened up a 2.5 million square foot production facility, had over 12,000 people there, 24/7, 365, 46 production lines. And we made, I think I think about 125 different phones. And we shipped, we manufactured 500,000 phones a day, and we shipped 500,000 phones a day. So my responsibility was Asia logistics, covering not only the phones, but Surface, Xbox, and peripherals. So yes, I was a part of a huge failure to to create these Lumia phones, but in the end, Satya didn't like the deal, and rightfully so. And we got news one Monday morning from him that they wrote down $7.5 billion acquisition, sold the IP rights back to Nokia for $500 million, and stock went up $45 a share the next day. And he basically said, we're selling the manufacturing plant, lock, stock, and barrel, including you all, i.e. the people, to Foxconn. And I wasn't going to be an American working in Vietnam for a Taiwanese company who had Chinese engineers jumping out of sixth floor windows, killing themselves from the stress in mainland China. So that's when I moved back, and that's why we moved to Atlanta.
Atlanta's lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
One of the things, Kenton, I don't know if you want to kick off. One of the cool topics that we were probing is not only do you have amazing practical real world experience. When we talk about the volume of phones that you're talking about, it's hard for most people to even imagine that scale a day per day, unless you've been a part of it, unless you've seen it packed in planes or containers or whatever. It's very difficult to imagine. So not only do we have that real world large experience, you also have an academic background and are a big supporter of education. Kenton, you had some questions around that. Do you want to kick off?
Right, Mike, when we talked in the past, your background as a board member at West Virginia University, I'm curious with the book that you've written, the academic book, the textbook and such, your impact and how you see the trade dynamics moving today. Are students going to come out more prepared or somewhat behind the eight ball as hiring managers and companies look to facilitate the hiring of future logisticians?
I mean, that's a great question, Kenton. And I think that the best way to frame it is I've always purported of being in the moment, in the business and experiential learning. Back when I went through school, and maybe Anthony as well, and you can, it was always academic inside the classroom, right? Oh yeah, you could maybe 5 people out of a particular degree track got an internship or something like that. But what was really important to me was to create experiential learning in the classroom through virtual reality technology, bringing in people from the industry like myself that are not true academicians. They're people that are let's say in the weeds on a daily basis and have a lot of discussions with the students, and then also bringing them out to experience manufacturing facilities, experience transload facilities, experience pure warehousing where it's static, and be able to see the difference. And then also, I think what's really important is how the real world interacts with technology. Technology for technology's sake only is just a waste of time. It's really, and this is kind of aligns with Mohawk as well. It's really people first, then process, and then the technology. So when you have these organizations, these large, manufacturing organizations, consumer good organizations, retail, they've got SAP or Oracle, and they're deploying, some type of warehouse management system or transportation management systems. It's either, a node or a module that you can bolt on, or it's something as grand as Manhattan and Associates WM or Red Prairie, connecting with SAP. And one of the things that is very difficult for students coming out and even people our age in this profession is to understand that you just can't use the technology. There's an art and a science to logistics. And if you don't have the art part down, if you don't have the visual part down, the spatial recognition down, you're always going to be chasing your tail, because if you're just relying on the technology, you're missing the nuances of what is a successful supply chain versus an unsuccessful supply chain.
And it's not intuitive. It's not intuitive. I always say, I had it, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I love that comment there. It's not intuitive. I have a degree in supply chain management. It was called logistics and transportation at the time, much less sophisticated sounding. And I walked into my first job, and I think due to a lack of experiential learning, right, was lost. It took a year to start taking some of the fundamental concepts, right, that we had learned, and started to see how they fit in to the broader pieces. And so I love that right there.
Yeah, I mean, and I got a Bachelor of Science in Business at the Chambers College. In at that time it was called Organizational Design and Development. It was human resources.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I graduated, a buddy of mine, and we worked in some bars and also a wine distributor, basically a retail store, and I thought it was going to be a restaurateur. Went to Cincinnati and worked for Bennigan's for 2 years, and as a general manager. And frankly, there were a lot of things that were, that was a supply chain, in minutia, right? Running a bar, running food and things like that. That's also a feel, right? There's a lot of technology to it, especially when you've got a menu that has, 300 items on it. But it came down to the people, how you serve, what questions you ask, do you upsell, you make a good cocktail, or are you just making slop? Slop cocktails, food still sells, but maybe they're not going to come back. So you have to fine tune that. And,
so another accidental logistician. So
yeah, well,
if I had a nickel.
Yeah, here's the best part. So, too many indulgences, and that's all I'll say in being in the restaurant business. You guys can fill in the blanks there.
Work in a restaurant. I work in a restaurant too. They're not allowed to work in a restaurant.
Yeah. So I walked away, and one of the guys I graduated from Chambers from, his name is John Camerano. His family owned General Shipping in New York City. And he goes, hey, and I'm saying I need to look for a job, and he goes, well, you ought to try this company called AP Moeller. And I'm like, AP Moeller, steamship. There's still steamships on the water. I didn't even know. Seriously, I didn't even know that. And he goes, yeah. He goes, they're the largest steamship line in the world, and they're looking for young people in operations and sales and all that stuff. So he says, the CEO's name is Ted Ruley. It was an icon of the industry back then. He goes, write him a letter and ask him for a job. I'm like, are you kidding me? But I did. I wrote him a letter, and I said, hey, look, I don't know anything about your industry. I didn't even know, and I admitted, I didn't even know there were still steamships on the water. But I'm smart. I'm a quick learner, and I will give you 100% effort 100% of the time. Give me a chance. And I put it on, signed, certified. So, he had to receive it. I used the system against itself, right?
Mhm.
So it couldn't just fall in somebody's inbox. This was before the internet and everything. So he had to sign for the letter. So he opened it, obviously read it, and like 4 days later, I got a call from the VP. His name was Don Artist. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Rulli was really impressed with your letter." And I had to put my hand over the receiver, and I started laughing. And he goes, "You know what stood out to Mr. Rulli?" I go, "No, I can't imagine, Mr. Artist, what stood out." He goes, "You can't imagine how many times we have people that are going to tell us that they're going to give us 150% effort when that is literally impossible to do. And you said 100% effort 100% of the time. That means you have an awareness." So that I went down to Cincinnati and actually took the Wonderlic and took the PI and knocked it out of the park, and a little inside baseball on this as well. I'd gone out with all of my friends from Bennigan's the night before and only had like 2 hours of sleep before I went into this interview. And Anthony, you met the guy that interviewed me first, Jeff Lambert.
Yeah.
And then they flew me over to the trade center. That's where they were located at the time. They were moving to become Maersk instead of AP Moller Shipping Company. Had like eight or nine interviews in one day. I mean, you talk about torture. And then the VP of Human Resources came in and said, "Hey," he goes, "I've got a unique opportunity for you. I want to hire you as my right-hand guy in human resources, or we can hire you to go into the training program to learn, about the business, and then you never know what could happen after that. This job is going to earn you $29,000 a year. This, the training program, it's 23.5." And she goes, "You don't need to answer now. Go home and then, give me a call and let me know." So I went home and thought about it and said, "Hey, I got it. I don't know anything about the industry. Clearly, I'm going to do the training program." He goes, "You're giving up almost $6,000 to go into the training program?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Well, that's the answer we wanted to hear." And that's how it started. And my first sales role, Kenton, I was supposed to be in a year training program. They yanked me out in 5 months. And back then there was no CRM or anything. It was just index cards that were red, yellow, and green. Green being good clients that are shipping, yellow being lost client, hasn't shipped in a while, and reds meaning they screwed up, have a horrible relationship. So I had a stack of cards this high, and 95% of them were red. And my first sales territory was the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. So you got an Ohio boy going into the jungle in 1989, and I swear to you guys, just got screamed at for the first year.
So nothing's changed in sales.
Yeah, just got screamed at for all of the problems, and in every language imaginable: Italian, Mandarin, Cantonese, Yiddish, Farsi, you name it. Just a United Nations of abuse. But sooner or later I came back, and the guys at first it was it was really the hard ass guys would lean back in their chair and they go, "You're back? You just back for abuse?" And then I just went back at them, right? And this is the spatial thing. This is the people thing. I went back at them. I said, "Yeah, I'm getting tired of you just complaining. I'm here to change this. If you just want to be, me be your punching boy because you're having a bad day, fine. But give me a chance to prove that we can do this, that this relationship can work, that you don't need to yell at me for things that happened 5 years ago. You're absolutely welcome to yell at me if I screw up, if you ship with us." And so sooner or later, they just started, booking business. And so it's that personal touch. It's that human touch when there was no internet, there was no technology, there was no CRM or anything like that. We had the telex system that you communicated with. And, just started, building books of business, and it just, went from there. But it was hard knocks, man, just hard knocks. And, and it was before technology really started to take off. There were still green screens. Each sales group had one green screen IBM computer between everybody to send, pricing requests and things like that over to Singapore or London or Copenhagen. And now we've evolved to, you can't take one step in our industry without it's something, technologically either going really, really well or failing miserably. And that takes away from the human interaction.
Fascinating. And Michael, I think we could have a whole series of podcasts on your experience. I think it's fascinating. We do, and I want to kind of shift gears
Sure.
a little bit. We try to keep the podcast to a reasonable length. We could do one of those 4-hour Joe Rogan podcasts one of these days. and you do have an amazing background and have so much to offer. I do want to ask Kenton real quick. Kenton, can you imagine a sales world with no CRM? What would that be like?
Are you describing heaven?
Spoken
Just no cards,
by a true faith.
Just note cards, buddy. So
hey, I love the whole red green no cards. I'm red green colorblind, so they all look like equal opportunities to me.
That's how you have to look at it. Exactly.
And persistence pays off. There's a great lesson there for anybody that's ever trying to sell anything, and I love it. But I want to change gears a little bit. You have taken on an amazing, a great team in Atlanta at Mohawk Global. It's a young area for us. It shouldn't be any secret to anyone listening to the podcast that we started off as a New York-based company and have been expanding both in the U.S. and globally with a lot of success. And you've come with an amazing background and a focus on the Southeast. And, Savannah, Charleston, Mobile, Houston, right, have gained just major prominence over the last decade. I think maybe a little quick recap for our audience, or for those who don't know, on what's been driving that growth, and how has it been, reshaping U.S. import and distribution strategies over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very interesting. You look at the competition between Savannah and Charleston, especially. It's like Georgia, Florida, right? In football, High State, Michigan. There's an undercurrent of respect, but there's a very visceral hate between the two, right? And I think one thing that if we talk about the Georgia Port Authority, the South Carolina Port Authority, and the Alabama Port Authority, what they have done is they finally figured out that you have to have a one-stop shop within the barriers of your port authority. So like in Savannah, this is one of the things that I'm trying to develop as a partner. NFI, transportation, they've been around for years and years. They have an on-dock transload facility, right? So basically, you don't even have to, your container, your ocean container doesn't even have to go over the road. It can be delivered to the dock for transload to a 53 on bomb cars. And that is huge savings. You're saving $250, $400 right there, because it's a free dray from the stack to the transload facility. That's outsourced. That's the Georgia Port Authority handing over the keys to that operation inside their four walls. That's one thing. And then Charleston has done that as well. Mobile's in the opportunity of doing that too. They haven't done it yet because they were relying on Walmart and some other investments outside of the wire that have helped build their volume. And the other thing that they're doing are the inland rail terminals. When I was with Maersk, we built the first multimodal terminal in the Maersk network in Czechia, outside of Prague, in a town called Melnik. And everybody said it was going to be a huge failure. And all I was saying is we need a direct link, from Rotterdam, from Hamburg, from Bremerhaven. So the same concept, and that was in the early noughts. I mean, that we built that in 2002, and a lot of naysayers internal to Maersk saying it was never going to work. And not next year, but in 2027, it'll have its 25th year of existence. And they said, the best you're ever going to get is some bob wire on asphalt with one, reach stacker. Now they're doing 20, 29 or 30 trains a week.
And it's such a, for South Carolina, right, for the Ports Authority, it's such a competitive advantage to have a built-in inland CY, just seamless process. And again, it's just, that has something to do with the age of the ports, right? And the openness of the space. If you think about how you had to build the Port of New York and the terminals splashed around a heavily populated and built out area, or Southern California, there's a lot more room to play with, right? In these regions. Exactly.
So Georgia Port Authority has the Appalachian intermodal terminal near what is it? Not Conrad. I can't remember the town, but it's an inland terminal. It has its own RTGs, just massive amount of volume, and so much easier to pick up and drop off equipment. For the South Atlantic. Charleston, they were the first, at least on the eastern seaboard, with Greer Spartanburg. Same concept. So, Griff and Jim Newsom, former Hapag-Lloyd guy, they were visionaries. Mobile now is going to be doing the same thing up near, I believe, Montgomery. So it's even further, right? So they're all trying to, get this quick moves, not stagnant, not staying in stacks in the port, but moving towards the client. And I think, that momentum, that it's not speed anymore either, guys. It's pace, right?
Right.
Yeah, sometimes you have emergencies and you got to have, expedited cargo or air freight or something like that. But with the containers, it was always, yes, we have the fastest transit time from, Hong Kong to Tacoma. But then your container, sits on the and then your container sits on the port for 2 weeks or a week, and because of congestion. Look what's happened in Prince Rupert, in Vancouver, and places like that. They can't keep up. So the fast transit time doesn't mean anything if it takes another 10 days to get to Chicago. So it's pace, and I think that's what those inland intermodal terminals do now is pace, and it gives you, the cargo continues to move. It doesn't stagnate. It doesn't, you don't get inundated with empties. So you can have more flexibility in moving things around inside the port facilities. Yeah. Do you have to have technology to support that? Do you have to be communicative and proactive? Yes. But the days of track and trace, your container is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on the Maersk on the Maersk McKinney Moller vessel, with 14,000 other containers. What does that mean to me? That technology doesn't do anything to me. How does it impact, your cash flow, your supply chain? And I called it, PO to POP visibility. Purchase order could be anywhere, China, Europe, to point of purchase. And that point of purchase could be, a retail, a wholesale, or a direct to consumer application. And there's financial aspects of all of those things that can be worked on. And that's the most important thing. It's the fiscal impact of where a location is of your cargo, not the location of your cargo. That's why I call, I have a company called, Locative Logistics. It was a consultancy company. It's still, still around, but I made it years ago. And also, my whole thing is logical logistics. Stop this hype. Stop this marketing. You've got to separate the reality from the marketing. And we have the technology to do that now, but we still hide behind it. I'm not saying Mohawk. I think we're very good about being in front of it and having empathy, having awareness, and enriching and delivering that way versus, we can tell you within the minute where your container is with no other information other than maybe your engineers, your financial people can figure out what the cost impact is.
So Danielle, can we get a white page written with a PO to POP? I don't know why that amuses me so much, but the PO to POP, I'm chuckling inside. So can we get that? I appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry. I want to make sure we don't lose it. Good ideas need to be rewarded.
I've got a chapter for that. It's kind of old, but we can work on that together.
It's an area that Mohawk strives to deliver though to our clients from our president and owner and down will constantly say, we don't move containers, we move pieces, we move stock keeping units, we move, right? We move, and it's important that we recognize as organizations that our value is in helping our clients sell properly to their clients. And I love the comment about pace, because every customer I've ever talked to would take reliability over top speed any day from a planning point of view, and the ability to lower their inventory cost and such in the US, right? And
Absolutely.
have the correct order quantity. So it's great stuff. And I love what we're seeing in the Southeast, and the development there, and you can certainly feel the strategic advantage. There's plenty of studies out there about access to population. We know it's a good region. My question is, with the massive political shifts that we've seen recently, trade tensions, nearshoring, right? New origins, how do you anticipate the flows in the Southeast being impacted? Do you think that there's any reason to expect that the Southeast will see more or less cargo outside as a percentage of cargo to the US, right?
Yeah, well, I think, if we get over some of this short-term agina over investment and things like that, the automotive industry and the OEMs associated with the car manufacturing, truck manufacturing, ATVs and things like that, you name it, Kubota, Yamaha, Hyundai, Benz, Volvo, every organization imaginable that makes things that go from point A to point B with either petrol or EV, they're all moving down this way. So I think there's going to be a great deal of opportunity and growth. And I think also, I won't name the account, but it just had a meeting with Mike Kuhn, with the CEO of one of my former companies that make bespoke containers. And they're working on, I've always called it outsource in our own backyard. They're working on some developments and some manufacturing nodes for, metal pieces, flanges, stanchions, and things like that out of Georgia and some other areas. So there's going to be a big move for domestic freight, I think. And also, you're going to see what's old is new again. I mean, who would have ever thought that we would live in a world that it makes sense to send all our ships around the Cape of Good Hope like it's the 17th century, right? But that's what we're doing because of what's happening. And again, extended transit time, 10 days, 7 days, whatever, that pace is affected. But, we're talking about possibly looking at really using, coastal barge services, not main lines, but, sending something from Savannah up to New York. We're talking about going back to river transportation for actually, finished goods. And so, I think it might not be the same opportunity or the same type of volume that's going to move, but it will grow, and it's up to us to stay ahead of the game. And I think it's been proven that what's old can be new again, and it's just a matter of setting expectations, setting an appropriate price level, staying close to your customer. The people and then process, and then finally the technology, whether it's computerized or whether it's a ship or a barge or a truck or a train. I think that's the most important thing. We're going to have discussions like that. That's the kind of discussions that I want to have down here with our sales guys and your team, Anthony, and really build. How can we do this? How can we do this different? How can we do it at a good price point where we can mutually benefit from it? And I think that's the most important thing. And going back is to Gar's point and to Gar's philosophy is we're not shipping things from point A to point B. We're moving things for fiscal livelihood.
Right.
That has to be mutual. We're not going to give it away. we've got to make our chunk of change, and you guys will make your chunk of change. Let's it's not a zero sum game. This zero sum game stuff, that's ancient. That is just ancient. You've got to be able to find a way to collaborate and be aligned and attuned to set up supply chains that sometimes may sound counterintuitive.
Right.
But if you know your partner's business, if we know our client's business and understand that, the real crux of the matter of what they need, and they understand that we're trying to align ourselves with them and that we're just not forcing them to do it our way, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to grab one of the things you said here. I think it's important. You talked about changing supply chains and not doing things the way we've done it just because that's the way we've always done it. You're standing in front of 1,000 importers, right? Or exporters, and hopefully we see more exporters that are facing chaos, right? And a really dynamic time period. What advice would you give them? Specifically those in the Southeast, but I think the advice will carry over to a lot. But if you're talking to an audience from your perch there in Atlanta that is really developing the Southeast, what are you talking to them about staying ahead of the curve in this crazy time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anthony, and there is no simple answer to that. But what I think is a great starting point is, instead of going in and telling, it used to be, the sales was like, tell a story. I think there's time for that, but it's usually after the success and after things are moving, the way that your client wants them. We need to lead with questions. We need to lead with, hey, what are your goals this year, next year, 3, 5 years from now? Where are you going with this? How much do you want to sell? How much do you want to import? How much do you want to outsource in your own backyard, to alleviate the risk profile and the risk vectors, right? Which, we've faced from about 2020 through COVID, and now the tariffs, and now, going around the Cape of Good Hope and all that stuff. Worse weather, more service level, injection of uncertainty because of wars and things like that. So it's like, how can we craft a successful supply chain platform for you that takes advantage of everything out there: inland rail terminals, local sourcing, slow steaming, and being able to find a way to communicate from that PO, from the point, the purchase order in China or wherever, to your consumer, to the POP, point of purchase. And so you ask a lot of questions and distill that information and then come up with a solution, instead of starting with a solution and then trying to convince them that it's the right one, because they're all different. And you've got organizations that are very fiscally aware and understand. You've got startups that are just scrambling, man, I just need my product. And at the time, maybe, yeah, it's air freight. Maybe, I think one of the greatest stories I heard was when the tariffs hit, Airbus, finished one of their big 320s in France, and instead of flying it to the United States and then delivering it to Delta, they flew it to China, picked up a bunch of equipment for one of their manufacturing facilities in the United States, and then delivered that equipment out of that airframe to the United States. It probably could have been take up a couple of seats. That was an airplane that was in service, so you didn't have to pay taxes and duties
Right.
on a multi-million-dollar airplane, because it's in service. It's just it's providing logistics service. So that's the kind of creativity that's sitting and staring you right in the face, but some people don't have the what to make that decision. And I think that you can talk to these young minds and these people that are coming out of college and starting their own companies. They've got all kinds of fresh ideas. Don't poo-poo them. Let's talk about it. I was just on with a great startup down here in Atlanta today, called Stored, STORD, and they're creating this stored collective of a group of companies that they can white label and sell to all of their direct to consumer, their retail and their wholesale clients that import stuff. I want to do brokerage for them. I want to be their in-house broker. It may never show up as Mohawk, but we're going to do that work for their clients. And, we use them as an aggregator. So now I have 9 locations in the United States that have ocean and air requirements for their customers, and maybe we can do the brokerage for them, and then in time maybe be able to work into transportation or intermodalism. So there's different ways of getting inside the wire, so to speak, and making something happen without just trying to pitch or tell a story about how great we are. I think we want to prove how great we are, and I always say, the converted are so much more passionate about something than the preached to.
Agreed. And you've got a great team there. You've got the people in place to do it. I know we're all excited about it. Kenton, we've got 5 minutes left here. And
sorry, guys. You get me juiced up, and I just
man, I love it. And we can do it again. We can have a part 1, a part 2. Like I love the conversation, and there's a lot to unpack. Ken, do you have anything that you want to ask before we kind of round out here? I got one more question, but if you've got something, take it away.
Nothing serious. I was just going to have some fun about his West Virginia days. My family's from the same area. I was just going to ask him to sing us a verse from Bob Denver's.
I don't see any camo either, so something's wrong.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, he's down south. Where's the camo?
Well, you can see up there, I have my grandfather's coal miner's lunch pail. I got his helmet up there. I have 2 Mountaineers right here. One's coal and one's made of wood. And, so.
Where's the sweet tea?
Not a sweet tea drinker. I do like moonshine, though. Aficionado of that for years.
Don't we need it? Don't we need it?
Yeah, and just so you know, my grandparents all emigrated. From my mom's side of the family from Sicily, my dad's side of the family from Poland and Ukraine, and we had up until my grandfather died, and it was when I was about 11 years old. He had a still. He had a still in his house. Made his own voda, which is vodka in Slav. So voda is actually water, really. But so yeah, I mean, I miss those days, and it was really cheap. It was really cheap as well.
No kidding, huh? I remember my grandfather making wine out of whatever was growing.
Yep.
For sure.
You name it. Sure. Raisins, cherries, berries, anything with a little bit of taste, right?
So yes, and to close out, in 1 minute or less, I'm going to ask you to you've come to Mohawk, you've got a great team in Atlanta, you've got sales in the Southeast. What are you most excited about over the next 12 months?
Oh, I'm excited about getting some of these. I think we have to be cognizant of who we sell to and what we try to sell them. It's easy to say let's go for the whale, but you've got to be careful about that. But I really think I'm excited about creating solutions that complement our people, complement our services. So we're trying to do this transload deal up in Norfolk and in Savannah with that NFI for one of our clients, and if we get one, then we'll get multiple ones. And the best part about that is our only effort is to cut an invoice.
Right.
And then we white label all the other services. So it's not going to inundate my team. It'll build growth, but it won't inundate them with other than the end of the month when they have to cut some invoices. So I think there's those type of relationships that excite me, and it also excites me that we're starting to negotiate some POAs, negotiate some credit deals, and getting aligned with some new customers that have been around for a long time, and be able to secure them because we are people focused, because we listen, because we are aligned. And gosh, I mean, those folks will ride the river with you, no matter if it's a 1 or a 5. Another reference to the new river from West Virginia there, Kenton. And I think it's, that's what excites me, is having the opportunity to be creative and to be out there. Because I've worked for large organizations that just simply, you have to fit inside this box, and if you don't, move on. We create a vessel for success, not a box, but a vessel for success, and we can load it up any way we want.
Well, we are excited for your leadership, your contribution, your ideas. I know there's a lot of excitement. I know we're going to see some great things.
Thank you.
You've got to again, I keep harping on your team. You've got a wonderful team, and I know you know that.
Yep.
You've got a clean slate almost, right, to build something special, and we look forward to it. On that note, and again, we will have you back on.
Love to.
Kenton and I are the borderline geniuses. You sound like the real genius, and we need you on. Kenton, you have one thing you want to say before we drop, before I sign us off?
Michael, how many more copies of your book do you have?
Well, I mean, you can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, they're in some of the Barnes and Noble's actually physical locations here in Georgia now. I used to be up in Ohio or in South Carolina, but I can easily, and if you think that there's value in it.
I was thinking the first person to comment "Poe to Pop" in our YouTube channel should get an autographed edition of your book.
Yep.
So
that's it. Can we make that happen?
I think we should make that happen.
100%. You guys can just let me know. I'd be happy to do that. I mean,
We'll
again,
take care of it.
What was interesting is there's a 240-page glossary of logistics and supply chain terms in here. It's kind of, back then, in the early noughts, it was 2012. It was handy. Now you have everything on the
we all
websites.
Have that Dictionary of International Trade on our desk. I remember
Yes,
that, right? You remember those?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, I would be happy to do that. I don't know if anybody would find any value in this now, but it's still it's still got some interesting. It's got some interesting ideas in there, because I'm crazy and I'm not afraid to try things and make new mistakes.
It's an autograph from a literary legend. I mean, geez, who wouldn't want that?
Kenton, I need you. I wish you were around about 10 years ago. I might have sold a few more copies.
Side job.
Put out edition 2. We'll sell them.
I'm gonna do that.
Thank you so much for providing the genius on Borderline Genius today.
Thank
Kenton,
you, guys.
Thank you, as always. It was a lot of fun. To our team, it's about to put this together and send it out. We appreciate it.
No
Episode
problem.
11. We have one more to a dozen, which that's a big deal.
That's a good number.
Means we're permanent.
And Anthony, just so you know, I think you made a huge mistake in saying that you didn't have any editing software or anything like that, because then that just said, well, I can just say whatever I want, and it has to go on.
Oh, we'll
you can't edit it out.
There'll be long beeps. Yeah, no. No, we love it. We love it. You have a lot to talk about, and I appreciate every word you said, and I know our audience will as well. So.
Awesome. I'm very honored and humbled to be doing this. I love talking about stuff and sharing and collaborating, and it was a great experience for me, and love to come back if it ever makes sense.
It will make sense, and we'll have you. So thank you so much. I've got to sign out, and thank you to our listeners.